Okay, so here we go again. This is something I'm making because of all the, I guess, the blowback that happened just from me putting up a post just about, deconstructing and really analyzing the information that's getting put out there and asking questions and showing ways of understanding of how language is used to program people's mind state. And then all the pushback that came out of that, people were saying things like, just I'm using word magic and, I'm just confusing people, et cetera, et cetera. Just pushing my beliefs, yada, yada, all that kind of stuff. So, and they're saying things like that the police are public servants and they're not a corporation, a business, and so now this was a wonderful opportunity to actually go over this again and use things that are actually verifiable that you can discover yourself if you choose to, and then you decide what you're going to make of it. So we're going to go play all up until the police violence happens, and then I'm going to start adding some things in that are actually discoverable truths that people have gone and done the research and found out for themselves, and then you can be the judge for what you decide to believe.
You might have seen them online. They call themselves sovereign citizens, political activists wreaking havoc across Australia, refusing to comply with government officials, including the police, deciding which laws they want to obey and which ones to ignore.
If you do not provide details, you will be arrested.
We don't have to give you any details.
Not in your jurisdiction. I will break the window.
There is, and you will commit offence, you'll be liable.
So right now, he's threatening to break the window if they don't hand over a license. Now, the issue here is that the people in the vehicle themselves, unfortunately, have not asked them to verify that they are actually police constables. And a police constable is a peace officer. That's the true nature. And I'm going to show you that in the oath in a moment. Instead, they've gone straight into this antagonistic reaction, right? And if you do that with these people, because they're actually not police constables, they're police officers, which means a policy enforcement agent. And I'm going to show you later again, just hold your horses before you start losing your minds, that what the difference is. And a policy enforcement agent, as soon as they see that someone's being antagonistic, their policy says that they get the right to exert violence on them. And now, if they were peace officers, they'd actually want to get into a discussion and justify, not so much justify, but prove that they have a lawful authority to stop them, right? Now, driving a vehicle is a right that we all have, right? It doesn't belong to anyone. It can't be exclusive. And that's not an actual crime not to be registered. There's no one gets harmed by that. And a lot of people have been taught that registering means that you're doing something lawful, etc. It's not actually the case. If you understand the true meaning of the word register, regis means king. And so what you're doing when you're registering something, you are giving your property over to an authority that's not you. You're signing it over. That's what the true meaning of register is. Now, you can go look that up. It's in Black's Law Dictionary. That's the nature by which the whole legal system runs from. So don't have to take my word for it. It's there for you to find. So the whole registration of anything, you've registered yourself for birth, deaths, and marriages. That's the same thing. Your children's school, you can look it up there. That appears on ABN Lookup. Type it up. Go to ABN Lookup and you'll see it has an ABN number and it's registered for GST. Same thing you can do in the Dun & Bradstreet. We're going to do that in a moment. I'm going to go into Dun & Bradstreet and I'm going to type in a police department and you're going to see what comes up. So this is what's happening here. They're getting into a belligerent state, right? And belligerence to these corporate policy enforcement agents means they get the right to exact violence on the others. And so that's why you're going to see violence. Had they asked them to, show where their authority lies, the authority of the people, that they're peace constables, where they're required to recite their oath, different situation. And I'm going to show you evidence of that as well.
For it. It is absolutely trespass. You got no jurisdiction here, bros. Because if you touch this car, you're committing an offence. You're committing offence by standing here. Yes, you are.
So they're going to no, I'm not. Yes, you are.
What? You don't know. You don't.
Here comes the violence, guys. Now, with your eyes, you show me the people in the vehicle what form of physical violence they have engaged in when this happens, right? Just with your own eyes, as you observe who actually smashes property and touches the other. Let's have a look, just as you physically observe it.
Don't have any jurisdiction on this land. Oh, look out.
You're under arrest.
Yikes. Done with that conversation.
That was one of these incidents that brought this to our national attention. And to learn more about this controversial group,
All right, so I'm going to come back and do the next part that's got the actual Dean of Law, so to speak, if you want to call that. It's not really a thing because you can't be a Dean of Law. Never mind. That's going to inflame a lot of people, that statement right there. I can see that coming. And so we're going to move into some evidence now. So we're going to go look at the police oath, shall we? Okay, so here's the police oath. You can find it. I've just gone to this website, australianpolice.com.au. I'm going to show you another one as well, so you'll see it's the same. It says every police officer must take an oath of office when they start their career. This is at the Goulburn Police College in New South Wales. There are two types of swearing in procedures that can be taken. One is for the person who has a religion belief, and the oath of office is sworn while holding a Bible. The other is referred to as an affirmation and is for those who are not of a religion faith, where the use of a Bible is not used. So I'm going to read you this one, and I'm going to show you another one. Okay, so I do swear that I will well and truly serve, our sovereign lady, the Queen, as a police officer without favour or affection, malice or ill will, until I am legally discharged, that I will see and cause Her Majesty's peace to be kept and preserved, and that I will prevent, to the best of my power, all offences against that peace, and that, while I continue to be an officer, I will, to the best of my skill and knowledge, discharge all the duties thereof faithfully according to the law. So help me God. Now I'm going to show you another one. It's just got the change with the king in it. Here it is, the police regulations 215. I don't know how they knew they were going to have a king back then, but yeah, these things just happen, don't they? So oath of affirmation of office for police officers. Here we go. I do swear that I will well and truly serve our sovereign Lord, the King. Right, so change it to King now. His heirs and successors according to the law. Now it says the law, right, guys? Now, if you understand, does it say I will serve our government? Does it say I will serve our politicians? Does it say I will serve our parliament? No. Why does it say the Lord and King? That means that we here in Australia are under what's called a constitutional monarchy structure. And what that actually means is that we have one head of state, which is the highest public servant. Now, all you people who think you know what public servant means, I'd love you to define it. So it's the highest public servant. That's who they swear to serve, even though they're here in Australia. So pay attention to what that actually means, right? Why would they swear to serve the highest public servant of the entire Commonwealth? Does that not mean that everything that happens, back over there, that affects every other country in the Commonwealth? You got to really think about the logic of that, right? Otherwise, that oath would make no sense as to why they do that. Now, how many people even know about the police oath? There's your first question. Rightio. So let's look at that seriously. And what that actually means, Sovereign Lord the King, is actually there's an oath that you are serving an office. So it doesn't matter who's in that office, because you saw it said a moment ago Queen, and now it says Lord, right? So it's the office that's created. What is an office? It doesn't exist in nature. So if we're going to have a system of governance, we need to create some titles, right? That's what that means. And so you're serving that office. And that office, its true nature is actually called the office of sovereign. So whichever man or woman occupies that office, their role is to uphold the sovereignty of the people in trust. So the people in trust that they will be protected, their individual rights will be protected under this structure. That's what that actually means. You can go do your own research if you don't believe me. The best part is the people actually sit there launching insults and attacks, calling people cookers, never do any research. That's the best part. And then they actually defame those who do, as if they're like living some alternative reality, because it doesn't actually fit in with their biases and prejudices of what they've absorbed from being taught how to suck eggs when they've asked questions and they've been made to suffer for asking questions. That's usually the trauma that sits behind all these people that launch insults, when things don't conform with their prejudices. So here it says, according to the law, as a police officer without favour or affection, malice or ill will. Now, if you think about those words, what do they mean? Favour or affection, malice or ill will, right? Did those police officers, the one that ripped out the window, was he doing something with malice or not, right? Just to rip out someone's window where there's been no inherent danger, right? There's no one's life is at threat. They're just sitting there peacefully. All they're doing is being a little bit argumentative. That's about it. But does that justify, every time you get an argument with someone, does that justify you going wrecking their property? Is that how it works? So they're just sitting there, right? Not actually causing anyone any threats or distress. There's no imminent of any sort of victim happening in this situation. And then this man who's standing in a costume, right, that is not justifying whether he has the authority of the people to be a peace officer, someone who's there to keep the peace, hasn't justified or proven that he has that, just rips out their window, right? And then what do you get? You get the whole idea that these people sitting in the car that just have had their property damaged and have been traumatized by someone destroying their property and grabbing them, right? That they are committing violence. That's what you start believing. Yet all the evidence is the opposite. So how do you get to believe the opposite of what you see? Who's living in the alternative reality? Let's really check on that one. Anyway, so malice or ill will, without that without favor affection means that you stand on some neutral ground. And the only neutral ground you can stand on where that can be possible is the universal principles of morality. Now, I really want you to pay attention to that word, guys, because later you're going to see evidence of that question being asked of these police officers and they're not able to answer it. That's what it says right there in the oath, right? Right there, that they stand in defense of the principles of universal morality, where they never favor anyone or anything. They are always acting in accordance to that understanding of what is, the thing to do that is actually going to keep the peace, right? Did they keep the peace then, or did they escalate violence? Which one did they do? You just have to take a proper look and remove your blinkers, right? And just see what happened, what actually happened in that moment. No matter what justifications you have, was that them holding to that promise, right? Because let's see what the other promise is. I will cause His Majesty's peace to be kept and preserved. Was that peaceful to rip out someone's window and traumatize them like that? And that I will prevent, to the best of my power, all offences against that peace. So does it say that I will do to the best of my power to create violence, to actually initiate violence that traumatizes people? No, it says to prevent against peace. Was it peaceful to rip out someone's window, right? Where there's been no crimes committed. No one got hurt. There's no threat of anyone, any imminent danger to anybody, right? It was just proving whether you have a license or your car is owned by the state. That's it. While I continue to be a police officer, I will, to the best of my skill and knowledge, discharge all my duties faithfully according to law. Does it say according to legislation? No. Does it say according to the legal system? No. It says according to the law. Now, this is what happens when I see these messages, is people start saying that lawyers know the law. Lawyers know the legal system. They don't know the law. The law is something we all know because it's something we're all born inherently to understand. But very few people are taught that. And they actually outsource their intuitive understanding of morality, because that's all law is, your understanding of morality, out to these people who go to school to learn the legal system, which is an entirely different proposition. It's got nothing to do with law. And so if you want to outsource your inherent knowledge to somebody else, you have just owned up to being a slave. This is the hard part that very few people are going to want to hear. So now we're going to move on and give you some more evidence. And let's just see all these people who claim that the police are actually public servants, how they're going to justify this when they hear this. Okay, here we go, guys. You're going to hear it from the horse's mouth. These are the calls to the police station, and certain questions about their capacity to understand what public service is, morality and things like that are going to be asked. And you're going to hear it in real time, right? Not us making it up. It's actually being done for you. So let's listen.
You have called Victoria Police. If this is an emergency, hang up and dial 000.
Okay, so there's a lot of waiting, so I'm just going to go to the part where the talking starts. So here we go. I think it's about here. So here we go.
Brony Police, Sydney Constable Hancock speaking.
Oh, good afternoon. How are you today?
I'm good, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. I'm just wondering, I'm doing like a bit of studying, and I've got like a research paper, and I was just wondering if someone can help me answer a few questions.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to, I'm here till 10 o'clock, so if you want to pop down, you can ask me a few questions if you want to.
Oh, can I do it here? Like on the phone?
On the phone?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So, sorry, it's just who am I speaking with?
So Senior Constable Thomas Hancock.
Yeah, and so your position there is Senior Constable.
Yeah.
And are the police stations publicly or privately owned?
Publicly.
Publicly, thank you. And so being that this station is a public building, would that make you a public servant?
Yeah, that's a good question. What do you reckon? Stand by, I'll just ask. Just give me 1 sec.
Thank you.
Okay, there you go, guys. Couldn't answer the question. There's your evidence. Now, let's listen to what happens. He had to go and consult somebody else. Now, does that sound like someone who understands what a public servant is, if they have to ask other people if they are one or not? That's a question for you guys to answer. It might be a bit confronting for you, I see. Yeah. Now I'm just going to pause until I can find the next part because there's a lot of waiting music here. All right, here we go. This is where he gets back on the line.
Sorry, I thought I hung up on you then, but I've still got you.
Oh no, that's all good. Thank
You
you.
still there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to give that a tentative yes. We serve the public, so that's what I'm going with.
He said a tentative yes. Now, is that someone who's sure of what his role is? Again, great question to ask yourself. All right, there's the evidence right in your ears, guys. Anyway, let's listen on.
Oh, fantastic. And so as a public servant, like they're required to swear an oath of office that they must be able to recite upon request. To the best of your knowledge, is that correct?
I couldn't tell you. I've never been asked to recite my oath of office before.
So he doesn't even know. Right there, guys. It's telling you. He's never been asked. Now, you think if they were real public servants, would that not be front and center in their minds, that that's a role of responsibility that comes with being a public servant? How many people wouldn't even know that? Now, the public doesn't even know that. So, of course, they don't need to. Now, why doesn't the public know that? Is there not some differential advantage gained from a lack of knowledge? Let's listen on.
Oh, okay. Can you explain to me how you would define the universal principles of morality?
Okay, guys. Now, remember I showed you earlier, without favour or affection, malice or ill will, right? That actually means that you understand, inherently understand, intuitively understand that everything you do needs to come from that universal place where you're standing on neutral ground, right? Let's listen to his answer.
Jeez, you really put me on the spot here.
There you go, guys. Now, if he was an actual peace constable, he'd be able to do that on a dime. Couldn't do it. So am I making this up, or is this actually happening in real time?
Sorry.
Can I ask what this is about?
Oh, so I'm just doing like research and trying to understand, like public servants taking oaths and what that oath actually means.
Yeah.
So for the public, and so the principles of morality, I'm trying to understand for people taking oaths, like officers or public servants, working in court.
The principles around what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah. And
So you see, you had to be coached into understanding what that actually means, guys, and finally slowly getting it. Now, is that really who you want to have carrying weapons and being, given authority to use those weapons against you? Is that what you really want? Because that's what you guys are all consenting to.
How would you define that? Just as what would you think in your mind is the right thing under the oath? What do they teach people as a public servant to be?
Okay.
Yeah.
As in the position that I'm in, as a senior constable in the Victoria Police, it's we remain impartial. So that involves listening to both sides of the story. We don't take a side.
Okay, so he's saying listening to both sides of the story. Does that actually happen in reality? Have a look at what that video was. Was that actually, listening to understand? Why do these people saying that these officers don't have any jurisdiction? Did they launch any inquiry as to why they believe that? Did they do that? Now, he just said that's their role, right? But in action, in practice, does that actually really happen? These are the questions that are there for you to answer, guys. All the ones who sit there launching insults like hookers and stuff, you need to answer these questions. Will the media ever go and do this level of investigation? Will they actually start asking these questions? Where have you ever seen this kind of investigation launched? Show us. And why isn't it being launched? If we're living in a system that's transparent, right, where we're all able to access knowledge, how come this has not been asked? Ask yourself that.
We sort of are Switzerland in almost every matter that we have to deal with.
So you're saying they're Switzerland, right? Is that what Switzerland does? Just go and breaks people's property? Is that what the idea of Switzerland is? That doesn't look like it's impartial to me. But anyway, you guys might have a different definition of impartiality.
And in terms of the oath, is that everyone gets served by us the same way, regardless of religion, all those different sort of circumstances. So that's sort of what it means to me, is that we kind of sit on the fence.
They kind of sit on the fence, and it's to do with your religious beliefs. That's just the extent of his understanding of what impartiality is. Is that detailed enough for you? Does that give you the confidence that they really understand what the difference between right and wrong is. I didn't hear that, but obviously different people have different standards. But that actually terrifies me when I hear that.
No biases.
If you will. Yeah, no biases. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, oh, that's a great explanation. Thank you.
So he was actually coached into that answer. He wasn't even able to come up and say that. So that just shows you what's in his consciousness.
And do you agree that a public servant must pledge an oath that binds them to make decisions and take actions that fall within the confines of morality?
Yeah. So we take an oath when we join the police force when we get sworn in.
Yeah.
It's in roundabout way too. It doesn't say these exact words, but it's protect and serve our community. Within the confines of the law.
Okay, so there he says he understands that, but he doesn't understand morality, and doesn't understand that morality and law are one and the same. That's terrifying. But the people who are going to launch insults about being cookers and that, obviously, it sounds like doesn't terrify you. So let's listen on.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what when we get sworn into the police force, that's pretty much what we're swearing.
Yeah. So you have taken the oath to stand under the. Yep. And to verify that you are indeed operating under the authority of people, are you able to recite your oath of public service?
I have it up on my wall at my house, but I couldn't do it off the top of my head for you.
Oh, no, that's okay.
So he doesn't even know it. So if he can't recall what it is he swore an oath to protect, how can he do it in his day-to-day life? If that's not front and center in his mind, how's he going to be able to act on it? Does that not terrify you guys? See, the thing is that most people don't know the standards of what a public servant is to even be able to know how to see it when it's not happening. That's the scariest part. And so then they jump in defense of things they don't understand. They don't know the definition of the words. They just think they have some random understanding of what's been told to them, and they just accept it. And then when they accept it, anyone else who challenges it, they're seen as a lunatic. How tragic is that? That's seriously tragic.
And can you explain to me so why the police are listed as a corporation registered for GST with an ABN number on the Australian Business Registry?
I could not answer you that question. I wouldn't be able to give you an answer on that one. It's a bit above my pay grade.
Yeah. Is that something you're aware of, that they do have an ABN number?
No, it's not something I'd be consciously aware of, no.
Oh.
So they don't even know that they're a business. And I'm going to show you soon that they actually are. Now, isn't that terrifying, not knowing who your employer is and just following blindly? Because if he was standing in morality, he'd be able to work stuff out about things that have been asked of them, to collect money for a business. They'd be able to work that out pretty quick. But these people don't do that. And there's a reason why. Because they actually hire people, and you can do your own research, who are going to fall within the confines of a particular IQ range that are not in that space where they're going to be inquisitive, where they're going to launch inquiry. Yet that's the role of the police, is to launch inquiry, to investigate. But they find that anything below 102 is more likely to follow orders without question. So that's one of the scariest things that you guys don't know yet before you start launching your attacks, right? About that they're specifically profiled for their level of intellect and their capacity to discern the difference between, what is fact and what is fiction, and the willingness to actually follow orders as long as they feel comfortable and they get their needs for acceptance met by their new cult family. That's going to be very confronting for a lot of you to cope with.
Oh, okay. That's something probably good to look into.
Yeah.
And just one more. Thank you so much for your time. You're really helping me. Can you explain how police recruited and trained in government-operated academies can protect and serve the people from a dangerous and corrupt state power, given the police are directly answerable to government and not the people?
Sorry, can you repeat that for me?
He doesn't understand the question, guys. Does that not terrify you? Okay, so let's listen and see what happens at the end here. Very fascinating.
Sort of break it down a little bit for me.
Oh, yeah. So
the police academy, start with that.
Yeah, so the police are recruited and trained in the government-operated academies. You know that's where they're trained. So can you explain how they can protect and serve the people from dangerous and corrupt state power, given the police are directly answerable to the government and not the people? So when
There you have it, guys. He hangs up right there. She's asked him about how can they be in a position to protect and serve the people when they are owned by government. How can that happen? So if their masters, which is government, right, decides that, it's going to, let's say, shoot bullets at people, and they want that to happen, will they do it? Well, there's pretty good evidence, if you've been paying attention, that they will. It's not been hidden. And the best part was that the public was cheering it. How about that? You were cheering for your own enslavement and to be treated as cattle that gets shot at in an abattoir. That's what you guys were cheering for. Now, just to say that this wasn't a random thing, I'm going to play you another one. So if you're still listening, if you can handle it, hang on, it gets better. Right, next one, here we go.
You have called Victoria Police. If this is an emergency, hang up and dial 000.
So now I'm just going to fast forward to where the dialogue starts. I'll be right. Here we go.
Croydon Police, Senior Constable Noski speaking.
Oh, good morning. How are you today?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. I'm doing some study and research, and I'm just wondering if someone could help me and answer a couple of questions.
Yeah, what's it in relation to?
Oh, I'm just doing like some research on like oaths and service to people. So I'm sort of trying all different public sectors, like people who are public servants.
Yeah.
So what's your position there?
Senior Constable of the Police, so just working in the uniform level.
Oh, yeah. And are the police stations, are they publicly or privately owned?
These questions I wouldn't be able to answer.
There you go, guys. He doesn't even know. That's what you believe is your public servant. Is that the level that you want to have looking after your, safety? Is that how you actually are happy to have that level of ignorance with weapons?
You don't know if it's public or private?
Not too sure, no.
Oh, and being that if it was a public building, does that make you a public servant?
Well, I'm not too sure. I can't answer that.
Oh, that's okay. And so,
He doesn't know that he's a public servant, guys. He said it right there. And you guys still believe they're public servants. Now, how are you going to explain that one?
When they go for their training, were you ever provided with a recognised definition of what service to the people means? Like at the police academy, do they give a definition of what that entails?
What's it?
He doesn't understand the question, guys. Did you understand the question? Because he doesn't.
As in, like, what do you mean?
Oh, so like the principles of morality. So when you're doing your training, what sort of guidance do they give people in the understanding of when you're out in the streets doing your service?
Yeah.
Like what does that mean to you? What do they teach you in how to handle like the situations and the people from a moral type of view?
It's probably not a question I can answer straight now on the phone because I've got a million things going on at once.
So there you go. He doesn't even know how to explain morality because his excuses. He's got other things on his mind. Now, what could be more important than being able to prove to the people that you are actually there to protect them if they require you to prove it? What could be more important than that right now? Have a real think about that. And he's rather just go, no, there's more important things than giving people the assurance that I'm actually here to protect them by standing on principle, which he clearly has no idea about what that actually means. So there you have it right there, guys. I'm not going to play anymore because he gives out his email and I'm not there to do that. So just, again, you decide for yourself, but there's more evidence coming. So just hold your horses. So here we go, guys. Dun & Bradstreet. If you don't know what that is, it's a credit reporting agency for corporations. So who do we find here? Oh, look at this. Police Department Vic. As you can see up here, www.dnb.com, business directory, company profiles, police department. There you go, right up there at the top. Now let's see what it says here. Overview, doing business as. So Victoria Department, Police Department Vic is doing business as. Now, I'd love to hear how you guys are going to say now that business doesn't actually mean that they're a private company, because that's what will happen. You will actually redefine it in some way. As Victoria Police, how about that? Company description. Oh, they've locked that information. Industry, it's an actual industry. Police protection. Oh, that's interesting. And here's the address, 311 Spencer Street, Docklands, Victoria. They have a number, that's locked. They have a website. Employees on this site, that's locked. Revenue. Now, if you're not a business, do you actually have revenue? They've locked that information, right? And look, the word incorporated. Who understands what that means? Now, let's see all you people who launch these things about people being cookers now come up with your... I'm fascinated to hear how you're going to deny all this. Like this is going to get much better. But anyway, that's the evidence for anyone who's actually willing and open to see truth as it is discoverable. And all the rest who want to shut down and protect your beliefs and your comforts, absolutely, you'll find a way to deny this as being evident as well. But wait, there's more. I've still got more, guys. You can type in any police department you want, New South Wales, Queensland, you'll see it'll all show up. But I'm not going to spend all day on this, so I'm going to come back with more. Okay, so now you're going to get definition of a system of service, right? Not a corporation, but a system of service, how it is to operate. Okay, so here it is, that all the people who struggle with definitions, it's going to be done for you. And then you can see if you can find a way to talk your way out of it. But let's see.
Be much more involved, because that's the break, isn't it?
That's it. And the people in councils and the people who are public servants are us. They are the people, and we are them. That's very much.
There you have it, right? They are us, we are them. Public servants. How many people actually understand that and have ever been taught that? I'd be willing to bet zero.
Much, by the way, how the police are supposed to function as well. We are the police, and the police are the people.
By consent.
By consent. Now, you'll hear them say, we police by consent, but they'll never tell you what that actually means, and you're about to find out what the true meaning of being policed by consent means. Now, every one of you who's launched in one of these attacks, these insults, tell me you've ever heard this before, and then go and refute it. I'd love to hear you refute it.
By consent, and the thing is that consent of the governed, by the way, is all about the jury. So that's where that comes from. The consent of the governed, you see, is through jury independence.
Jury independence. How many people know what jury independence means? Very few. That means they are the final arbiters of law. Anything that the government puts out, legislation, the jury has independence of government to actually decide whether that is lawful or not. And if it's not, they have the power to repeal it. So that's how we are policed, by our own consent, through a mechanism of trial by jury, where there is no actual judge. The judges are the jury members, the people. The very legislation that's going to affect the people, right? That is what's on trial, because we need to be in charge of what happens to us. Government legislation cannot interfere with our independence as free sovereign beings. Beings who have the capacity for self-determination cannot have government legislation infringe on that. If they do, then that is dictatorship. And that is the lawful system of governance where the people are self-governing through trial by jury, through juries of the people who have the final say. That's how we are policed by consent. And how many of you people who launch cookers know that? I'm willing to bet zero.
But the point I was going to make is that actually, if you look at police training, traditional police training, they're very much encouraged to see it that way. I mean, I don't know whether that's more recently. I don't think it.
So those recordings I just played, did you hear anyone who sounds like they understand that? Now, why is there such a deficiency in knowledge? That's the question you people who launch the term cookers need to answer.
It is. I think things have started to break down in that way. But traditionally...
See, they are breaking down. I reckon they've been broken down for quite a while, I'd say.
Traditionally, the police training is very much about encouraging them to see that as their role, that they are the public and the public are the police. They're just an extension of that because they're employed in that sense.
So how many police have ever defined that? Their true understanding of what their role is. They are one of the public, although they're just employed in a position to actually do something, where they're entrusted with some authority. That's it. Did you get that confidence when those questions were asked to those police officers? Did that come out in any of their way to explain what it is that they do and how they got to where they are? Again, questions for you to answer. Now I'm going to finish off on what happens when you actually do confront these police officers with this knowledge that you've just learnt. And you're going to see the difference between having your window ripped out of your car to what actually happens when you use the power of knowledge in real life. So here it comes. Okay, so the interaction you're about to see is going to, now you're going to be left to choose for yourself how you understand your interpretation of someone who's acting morally, someone who's standing in impartiality, who's open to investigation, who's serving of the public, who's a member of the public themselves and would want to be treated the way that they treat others, right? And be treated, like that reciprocal relationship, which is all the whole meaning of what they were meant to be, these constables, right? Now you're going to be able to see and witness for yourself whether that's what you see here, especially when he asks straight away whether the individual in question is a sovereign citizen after they've just asked them to identify themselves. Now, let's just see if that's what you understand is that meaning.
Identify yourself.
Police station.
So that's
exactly right. What's your name, sir?
what's your name?
And you're a sovereign citizen, sir, are you?
So you making accusations, are you?
No, I'm not making accusations.
So right away, he got asked to identify himself, right? Which is the actual duty when you're in a role to identify yourself so people can verify that you're legitimate, right? What's the first thing he did? Launches an accusation, which he can't even say when that's been brought to his attention. He says accusation. Now, this is a man who's gone in a panic straight away. Can't even speak correctly, right? This is a man who's been doing this for a lot of years, right? And so are you seeing evidence of someone who's standing on the principles of morality, who's someone who's just in a reciprocal relationship, who actually not really, because they're employed by the people if they're a true public servant. So really they're actually bound by duty to answer the questions of their employer. That's the actual true nature of a public servant, because the word is servant, in service, not dominator, right? They're not a public dominator. That's not what we've agreed to, but in actual fact, they actually are, as you saw when they ripped out the window. So, it's about understanding the meaning of what's in front of you guys. Whether you're willing to see it, that's an entire different thing. That requires will, care, and courage. That's an entirely different matter. Anyway, let's press on.
I'm here to serve some court documents.
So let's just see if you're...
So he's here to serve some court documents, all right? So if he had lawful authority to serve court documents, all right, from a lawful court, let's see what happens later if he actually goes and does it.
Standing under your oath of office of constable today.
Pardon me?
Are you standing under your oath of office?
So he said, pardon me. He's not aware of what an oath of office of constable is. Isn't that funny? How about that?
Constable.
Which is what?
You don't know what that is?
So you just heard him say, which is what? And now he's openly said, right, for all of you to hear, that he does not know what an oath of office of constable is. If that doesn't terrify you, I'm not sure what will. But let's see what else happens.
Are you a public servant?
Of course I'm a public servant.
Okay, so a public servant needs to stand under the oath of office of constable. Is that you? Are you standing under your oath?
Oh, now he starts saying, if you believe that. Now, this is something quite curious. Let's have a look over here. You see his little camera right there? Well, let's look over to here. This is what I can see. Sort of looks like the Union Jack, but in black. Pay careful attention to why would these police officers be wearing a black flag that looks like the Union Jack? Why would they be doing it? You see that star down there? Right, so they'd be those stars that are meant to be in the Australian flag, but why is it black? Great question for all you guys who like to launch that term cookers to answer. But I'm sure you'll have your own little version of reality that comes out of that too. But anyway, let's watch on.
Oath of office of constable.
I am, yes.
You are? Perfect.
So now he's finally said he is standing under his oath of office of constable, where before he said he didn't know what that was. Right there, he's caught in a contradiction and a lie. Evidence is for you to see, for yourself, guys. This is right there in front of you. How much cognitive dissonance happens, that's not really, something I can control. It's up to you guys.
Let's see. We're about to find out. Here we go.
Now look at him. He's starting to leave, guys, right? He's playing with his paper. All of a sudden, this paper, this is very official, what he's got here, that he's come to serve from a lawful place, he's running away. Watch what happens.
Here we go. Where are you going? Stay here.
I'm not here to answer any of your questions.
No, you're not going to answer.
So how about that? Now he's not here to answer questions. He gets to be above it. A public servant does not need to answer the questions of their employer, the public. Now he's going to be able to just decide that he doesn't get to do that. So is he really a public servant? Is this evidence to you that that's how you understand what public service is? Now watch what happens when he leaves, right? He starts launching the same accusation, because he can't say the word accusation. The same accusation he said he wasn't launching a second ago, he goes and does again. This is what you call quality protection. Is that correct?
But you're actually going to be on camera, walking away, proving you're not an office, a holder of constable, that you're actually a private corporate policy enforcement agent.
There you go, right there. He said it again. So if he was a public servant coming to serve lawful documents from a lawful court, why did he leave with those papers in his hand? Please answer that question. I'd love to hear it. So this is going to be very inflammatory for a lot of people who have crusted and rusted on their certain beliefs. And I imagine I'm going to get a ton of vitriol. Yet that's what happens when people can't actually stand in truth and handle it. They go straight into attack. That's the only way they've been taught to be able to deal with the lies that they've absorbed through suffering. And the only way they can deal with that is to inflict suffering on others by defaming, dehumanizing, and insulting and shaming them into submission, because that's the way they learnt to suck eggs. So really, guys, all you guys that are launching all these insults, you're just showing us how you live in trauma and how you are part of the problem that creates more trauma. That's what you're really showing us, because you're not coming from a position of knowledge. You're coming from a position of ignorance. The term ignorance actually means the willful denial or refusal of objective truth. That's the only thing that's left for people when they willfully refuse truth, is to launch into insults and shaming people. That's the only way, because they can't control people any other way. And this entire structure has taught you to live under a system of domination and control. And when you absorb it and stop asking questions, then you become part of the problem. And this is what's needed to be faced here. Let's get into the true matter at hand. Now, who's got the courage to face up to it? I bet you very few, and they'll just carry on their patterns of behavior with more insults.